नमस्कार दर्शक मित्रों। थिंकलाइन के आज के नए संस्करण में आपका सबका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। आज हम बात करेंगे भारत यूएस की। जी हाँ, अमेरिका बहादुर की। और इसीलिए आप देख रहे हैं हमारे साथ है डॉक्टर आदित्यन जी, हमारे एक्सपर्ट्स। वो हमें समझाएंगे कि ये भारत यूएस के बीच में पेच कहाँ फंसा है। पेच तो फंसा है, अमेरिका बहादुर को पेट में बहुत दर्द हो जाता है कभी कभी। They're twisted at times. That's what Indians feel. Maybe Americans feel the other way. अभी वहां तो अगले महीने चुनाव भी होने। यहां जयशंकर जी अपनी कैजुअल अदा में, अंदाज में जिसको जो कहता है कह देते हैं, थप्पड़ पे थप्पड़ मारते हैं। He slaps people, literally. That is what you can see. A middle power, as people say, India is a developing economy, a middle power. How can you play fools with a superpower? But is there a superpower today? The major power, all right. But is US a superpower? That is also a question that needs to be asked. और अभी तो recently, I'll start with the latest. Before I go to West Asia, I want to ask a small question to Dr. Adityanjee. सर, ये यूएससीआईआरएफ का जो रिपोर्ट आया है, फिर से वही चीज, भारत में माइनॉरिटीज और ये और सीएए और ये वो, व्हाट इज इट? इज इट अ प्रेजेंट टैक्टिक? आर दे फूल्स? उनको समझ में नहीं आता कि इतनी बारी एक ही एक बात करते जाओगे तो आपको कोई सीरियसली नहीं लेगा। सर
देखिए हिमांशु जी, जो भारत में समाज है, बुद्धिजीवी वर्ग, उनकी सोच ऐसी है कि विश्व में हर राष्ट्र, हर बुद्धिजीवी उन्हीं की सोच के अनुसार चलेगा। किंतु ऐसा होता नहीं है। जो हमारा नीति निपुण समाज है, जिसको पॉलिसी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट कहते हैं, उनके कुछ मापदंड हैं। अगर हम ये सोचें कि पूरा जगत हमारे मापदंडों के अनुसार आगे कदम लेगा, हर चरण पर उन मापदंडों का आदर मान सम्मान रखेगा, ऐसा नहीं होता। कूटनीति में ऐसा नहीं होता। हमें समझना चाहिए कि ये चीज क्या है। आपने कहा इज अमेरिका ए सुपर पावर? I'll answer that in pure geopolitical terms. Since the end of the Cold War, end of the World War II, America has been a superpower. From end of World War II to dissolution of Soviet Union, America remained as a superpower. From 1991 onwards, US became a hyperpower. Now that's the difference people have to understand, because post World War II there were two superpowers.
Yes.
Soviet Union and United States. After 1991 there was only one global hegemon, and that was United States, and it was not a superpower, it was a hyperpower. What you are witnessing now is decline of the hyperpower, but it still remains a superpower. So that is something to be. Now this declining hyperpower, the sole superpower, is facing challenge from a rising hegemon, which is China. However, the policy establishment in United States is showing a Pavlovian reflex. Everything they blame on Russian Federation. They continue to perceive Russian Federation as their enemy, and their stated objective is to dismantle Russian Federation into smaller republics, just like Soviet Union was dismantled. In some segments of US policy establishment, there's no realization that the threat of China is at their door. They're totally oblivious to it, just like they were totally oblivious till 9/11 happened to the threat of Islamic jihadi terrorism. So that is, in medical term, called anosognosia, inability to appreciate reality or denial of the reality. So that there is a selective amnesia and selective denial of reality on part of US policy establishment. In contrast to that, the Indian policy establishment, their expectation is that over last 2 decades, we have improved our relationship. We have tried to do whatever they told us to do. We signed 4 or 5 basic foundational agreements, sort of Becca and Lamoa and Comcasa and this and that, SOSA. I mean, this is alphabet soup. Okay. We have 2+2 dialogue. We have started buying hardware and equipment from United States. Very flowery rhetoric was delivered by former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee that US and India are 2 natural allies. Natural allies, my foot. US is a superpower, and in brutal terms, US will continue to maintain or strive to maintain its hegemony by hook or by crook. And in that process, if they have to use any country, any nation,
they will do so.
Use it and discard it. Generally, if you talk to your Pakistani counterparts, they will call this use and discard policy as using countries like Pakistan as a condom. You understand it's a kind of vulgar kind of comparison, but that is what the superpower United States does, that they will use a country when their strategic objectives are no longer needed or maintained, they will discard that country on one pretext or the other. So have no illusions, this rhetoric, flowery rhetoric about world's oldest democracy and the largest democracy or, natural allies, this is all hogwash. So let's not be under the illusion that India and US will ever be quote unquote strategic allies. That's not going to happen. United States knows that. Some of the Pentagon officials have already stated that yes, India is going to emerge as one of the major powers. India is not a major power at this point in time. India is a middle power. It maintains its strategic independence and strategic autonomy very zealously and guards it very zealously, which means India will not get into military alliance with any bloc. And that has been the stated policy since 1947, good or bad. It has been criticized. India's non-aligned stance was criticized, but that was product of, political policies, not only by India's sort of bureaucrats and political leaders, but also it was forced upon India by the political leaders and bureaucrats of the West, imperial West. So you have to see in context of that. India is never going to be a vassal state.
Yes.
Of any superpower or major power, be that United States, be that Russian Federation, or in the past Soviet Union. India was not a vassal state. India had some good relations. So we have to negotiate this relationship, and we have to understand that our relationship with other countries and hegemons and rising hegemons are not based on emotions or shared values. They are based on transactions and national interests. And as the national interests are permanent, short-term alliances or transactional relationships can be sacrificed, because that is what United States does all the time. So if you see the power blocks in United States, we in India think when United States or United States government is a unitary entity. It is not.
It is not.
They are different power centers, and each has their own stated aims. And sometimes it appears that one power center is working against the other power center, but sometimes that is done intentionally and deliberately to use
Playing
deception.
good cop, bad cop, yes.
So USCIRF is a creature of United States State Department.
Creature, okay.
It was created almost 25 years ago by an act of parliament, act of Congress. At that time, the budget was $50 million. I don't know how much it is, $100 million or whatever. Usually it has 9 commissioners. And just see how these commissioners are appointed. They are nominated, 1 or 2 by president, 1 by the Senate majority leader, 1 by speaker, 1 by the minority leader in both chambers. And I think rest of them are sort of nominated by the political parties, which are 2. So that's how they are appointed. And then there's a staff. And that staff again is because of their political proximity, who has been in the goody boy circles of these political parties. So ultimate aim is to do finger pointing at other countries, because the jurisdiction of USCRF, or USCIRF as they call in the United States, is not the domestic human rights situation in the United States. Now, on top of that, after USCIRF, during Obama time, they created another creature. Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure whether it was Obama time or beginning of Biden's administration, Biden-Harris administration. That is International Religious Freedom Ambassador at Large.
Yes, it was Obama time, I think, if I recollect.
And again, if you see the current appointee, it has been an Islamist. So currently the regime in US is controlled by Democrat Party. So you see what happens, and you can, rave and rant. That's not going to change, because they'll continue to do what they're doing. Despite the rhetoric of what White House says, what the President of the United States, whatever the Pentagon says or State Department says. So these are some of the, power players. Sometimes you will see that Pentagon is working at cross purposes with State Department. These departments have large bureaucracies, and these bureaucracies have their own policy planning, their own way of thinking. And yes, Pentagon is more friendly towards India or something like that, but State Department is not, because the State Department mandarins are still in that Cold War mindset. And they still believe that India is an enemy because it supported the quote unquote Soviet Union. So you need to understand these nuances before getting upset. I think what policy planners in India need to do is to just continue to focus on building the economy and building the armed forces, and not have very high expectations from relationship with the United States. You have to chart your own path.
दर्शक मित्रों, डॉक्टर साहब सीधा सीधा कह रहे हैं, आपका डिफेंस बिल्डअप करो, भारत अपना डिफेंस बिल्डअप करे, यूएस से बहुत ज्यादा उम्मीदें मत रखें। देखिए, बहुत सीधी बात बता रहे वो, बहुत ज्यादा उम्मीदें मत करें। तो आप अभी भी सोच रहे होंगे कि यूएस ने ये प्रॉमिस किया कि 414 आ जाएगा इतने महीने में, जी का 404 आ जाएगा। उम्मीद करिए आएगा तो ठीक है, बट देन हेज योर बेट्स And that is what today Ajit Doval is doing. He's in France today as we talk. हाँ दर्शक मित्रों, आज पहला नवरात्र का दिन है। सबको नवरात्र की शुभकामनाएं। सर आपको भी आदिशक्ति माता अम्बा की शक्ति की उपासना के दिन है। बात करेंगे हम थोड़ा शक्ति की। मित्रों, अभी बात करेंगे वेस्ट एशिया, as we call it. It's become a theater of war. It will become a theater of war that we knew. How serious is it going to be? How serious US will enter into it? Because my question today is very clear. After Iranian strikes, retaliatory strikes, it's very, very clear that Israel will respond unproportionately. In that, how much is it? We are learning, sir. हम तो सुन भी रहे हैं कि 3 बारी reinforcement US से आ गए. 2 US warships, big warships. एक बाजू अब्राहम लिंकन, एक बाजू हैरी ट्रूमन, जिसको हम नौका काफला बोलते हैं. They are also there. So, if I say conservatively, about 50,000-60,000 soldiers are there, US soldiers, US troops in the Gulf and Mediterranean. Are we building up towards a war? And this time will Iran, my mood question is this, sir. Will Iran be taught a lesson? That's number one. Can it be taught a lesson? Or it's like the previous time, it's a fixed match?
So some comments. Southwest Asia has been perpetually in a warlike situation. There's never been peace in that region. So to say that will there be a war is a misnomer. Terminological inexactitude, because there has been perpetual war one way or the other. There's a power play, not just super power play, but also there's a sort of, race for the regional hegemony. So who is going to be the regional hegemon? That has been the question in Southwest Asia. And traditionally, it has the regional hegemon, if it say in geographical terms or quasi-ideological terms or quasi-religious terms, it has been Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, there has been a perpetual challenge to Kingdom of Saudi Arabia from Shiite Iran, but that does not end the picture. There's also been, at least for last 2 decades, again challenged by Turkey that wants to assume the caliphate under Erdogan. Okay. So these 3 regional players have been having a kind of competition. And sometimes there are fixed matches. Like the first Iran-Iraq war lasted for 10 years. That was a fixed match. Saddam Hussein was supported by the United States. They kept on giving him arms, but they did not want him to become too powerful. So, sometimes they were giving also arms to Shiite Iran. So you have to understand these nuances. That is number one. The war is already escalated from just between Hamas and Israel to Hamas, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, which are again a creature of Iran, and now direct Iranian involvement is there. So the theater is enlarging. It was localized conflict. It is becoming regionalized now, and it will continue to increase. What is the interest of Israel has to be balanced against what is the interest of Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu. If the war ends today, he will lose his chair as prime minister. He knows that. He'll have to go for a new election because currently there's a sort of, war
Unity
cabinet.
government, war
He
cabinet.
has already lost his majority in the parliament. So there's war cabinet, which is an extraordinary thing. So it is his interest to escalate the war as long as possible. Is he being anti-national or anti-Israel? No. He is using that opportunity not to only to perpetuate his power, but also to take care of Israel's security interests. There will be retaliation by Israel. There's no issue about that. Now, will that opportunity be used by United States? United States has perpetual military presence in West Asia. I can tell you there is no appetite in United States domestically for sending boots on the grounds ever again. So despite 60, 70,000 US Marines, troops, or naval personnel, they will not directly join. They will continue to provide arms, technology, intelligence to Israel. They may participate in Israel's, ballistic defense shield, whether that is Arrow missile system or Iron Dome and things like that. So they will continue to contribute like that. Issue comes, what would be the outcome? My guess is that this opportunity may be used for a very noble purpose.
To bring about a regime change in Iran?
Yes.
Okay.
Ayatollah crazy in Iran needs to go.
Okay.
And Iran being a very proud civilizational nation, if there's a direct attack by United States, all the anti-government feelings will get transformed and metamorphosed into pro-nationalistic feelings.
Yes.
And the entire country will be behind the Islamist government. I think by trial and error and by, trying to burn their fingers several times, United States establishment has learned that they should not directly intervene in Iran, because they did in 1951 a regime change in Iran, and consequences of that you still see. So they will not directly intervene, but this gives a good opportunity for dismantling of the Islamist regime in Iran, which is out of control in certain ways. And there should not be no illusion about that. Till 10 days ago, Ayatollah was raving and ranting about treatment of Muslims in India. I mean, we are buying your oil. We have given you aid to develop the Chabar port, and we are helping you with your trade things. And we sometimes give diplomatic support to you on international organization, and this is the way you treat us. I think ordinary Iranian will be very happy that the Islamist regime goes, but this can be used, and I would say should be used, as an opportunity to bring about regime change in Iran. Bibi Netanyahu is smart. He has already addressed directly the Iranian people, complimenting them for their civilizational heritage.
Yes.
And telling them, we are here to help you. We are not against you. We'll work with you. We will promote your interests. All we want to do is take care of your Islamist regime. There were some internal disturbances in Iran in 2009, around 2009 or 2010, I believe, when there were some elections and there were popular fervor in Iran against the regime. But, I will say Barack Hussein Obama regime in United States didn't want to do anything because it would have different.
I think it was Barack Hussein Obama who gave a new lease of life to Iran, right? By
Barack
releasing.
Hussein, history will find out the Islamist credential of Barack Hussein Obama, who was the first Islamic president of United States, the way he went backwards to appease and promote Islamic Jihad and Islamic nations worldwide. Starting with, his famous address in Cairo University, and bowing to the king of Saudi Arabia and then transferring space technology to UAE, the list is enormous.
Okay.
Very pro Iranian sort of postures and things like that. So bottom line is that the current escalation of perpetual conflict in Southwest Asia, what would be the outcome? I won't say the word end game because there's no end game in Southwest Asia. There's always something happening. So hopefully the Ayatollah is scared. He has been taken to a safe location because
Safest
Hezbollah,
location.
yeah,
The recent news a few
yeah,
minutes ago. Safest
uh,
location, they say.
because Hezbollah chief Hassan
Well, he was also
Nasrallah,
in safest location, no, sir?
he was 60 feet deep underground.
And still went.
60, and still he was contained. I would use the mild word contained. I would not use any other word. So most likely the chief Ayatollah of Iran would be hiding in a mountain inside mountain, uranium enriching uh, plant in Natanz, something like that. Uh, so probably, you may have busting bombs, 500-ton conventional
Hmm.
munitions. But when you are under or inside a mountain, it's very difficult to destroy the entire mountain. Probably that is where he is hiding. But it tells you the scare, the dread they have of Israel. Uh, I think Israel should be, at this point in time, should have a locus standi to take care of its strategic interests. You have not seen the other thing. Other news is that Israel has declared the UN Secretary General as PNG,
Yeah, they banned him.
non grata,
Yes.
not allowed to enter
Persona non
Israel.
grata, not allowed in Israel. It
Yeah,
came out yesterday night, India time.
yeah. So that tells you what are the stated aims of Bibi Netanyahu's war cabinet, because they will try to take care of. They are not saying we will destroy Iran, we will kill Iranian people. They are saying we will cut the head of the snake.
We will take care of your mullahs. Very simply, if I put it, because sir will talk only diplomatic language, but I can talk a common man's language. And sir, now one comment I want from a few things which I'll tell you. In last 48 hours, Vladimir Putin talks to Bibi Netanyahu. In 48 hours, Narendra Modi talks to Bibi Netanyahu. Before that, Netanyahu comes out with a statement about Iranian people. And in last 48 hours, which many people do not know, there is a diplomatic request of the highest nature from the Iranian officials to intervene. After they fired 181 missiles and drones.
Well, this is a classic technique of warfare according to a manual. And I am not going to tell you what manual it is. You take very offensive, aggressive stance. And when it times for the other party to retaliate, you assume victimhood and try all your benefactors or supporters or would-be supporters or friends to come and save you. That, you know, hail thy, hail the chief, protect my life. That is what is happening now.
Allah mujhe maar dala. समझ लीजिए.
Vladimir Putin is beholden to Iranian regime because they have provided missiles, drones in the ongoing war against NATO. I'm not saying Ukraine against NATO because it's a NATO-Russia war. NATO-EU-Russia war in the Kurukshetra of Ukraine. And in that process, the people who have helped Russia are countries that helped are North Korea, Iran, and China. So Iran hopes to get some payback from the Russian Federation. As far as Iran reaching out to India is concerned, with what face? With what face you are asking that? Do you think Iran has not interfered in India's domestic affairs? India has been at the receiving end from Iran, not just once.
Multiple
May
times.
I remind you and your audience, because my memory is deep, who had called for fatwa against Salman Rushdie. We are talking almost 3.5 decades ago.
35 years. Yes, yes.
That was Iran. Iran had issued a fatwa, the Ayatollah crazy.
Yes.
You have Iranian spies going to AMU, creating unrest. You have Iranian spies paying money to some journalists based in New Delhi. They are motorcycle bikers gang warfare in two factions in Delhi. At every drop of a hat, Iran comes out and starts talking about treatment of Muslims in India. And when push comes to shove in international organization, Iran takes pro-Pakistan, stance. You may not know that in one of the articles I had written about emergence of a new Quad, anti-Quad Quad. And this anti-Quad Quad 2 years ago, I'd called it PRIC, P-R-I-C, Pakistan, Russia, Iran, and China. And there were apprehensions that this new Quad will be taking very much anti-India stance because Russia was very much miffed at that point in time, and that is pre-Ukraine war with India for being part of the Quad. So was China. So they were trying to gang up, and in that process, Indians' interests would have been harmed. So you come to an ultimate situation that India is part of the Quad, India is part of BRICS, India is part of SCO, India is part of IMAC, India is part of,
INSBC.
that North-South
North-South
International
Corridor.
Transport.
INSBC, yes.
Yeah, corridor. India is part of Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. So it is in India's interest to, have relationships with all the countries and all the groupings, including Iran. So in that process, if Iran wants to approach India for help, that's fine, but you need to come as a supplicant begging for help, and you need to modify your behavior. This would be the good time to tell them.
दर्शक मित्रों, आपने सुना बहुत दो टूक बातें हो रही है. We are telling you the exact truth, how it should be and how the foreign policy needs to work. Now, sir, I have my last question. Before that, let me tell the people, please like, share, and subscribe us. I know you people watch this video in a large number. Please continue doing so, and please don't forget to comment. Give us as many comments as you want. Positive, negative, because that will help us improve ourselves. Now, sir, coming to the last question, and that is pragmatism. Now, today's West Asia situation is, see, as you said, perpetual state of war. Yes, all right. But today's situation is something that it can ignite a very huge war. It can do that. It has the potential of igniting a very huge war. Now, as you said, if USA enters physically, my question is that USA enters physically into the war against Iran, there might be Iranian people's feelings might be hurt. When we are talking in terms of a regime change, certain regime changes are for good. Contrary to what has happened in Bangladesh, is not for good. But this could be for good. Now, in this situation, sir, do you expect the impossible being achieved? And impossible, when I say, it means ongoing two big wars coming to a halt almost simultaneously in few months' time.
The trajectory of both the conflicts are different. US, NATO, EU war against Russian Federation in Ukraine is a hot war since February 2022. But it has been a simmering, warm, cold war since dissolution of Soviet Union. And certainly from 2014, from Maidan Revolution, when a democratically elected president of Ukraine was deposed by CIA-funded Maidan Revolution. Let's not beat that. And there are US political scientists like John Mearsheimer had warned in 2014 itself that you are playing with fire, don't push Russia so much. When people shed tears about Crimean Peninsula, please understand, Crimean Peninsula was always part of Russian Federation.
Yes.
It was in 1954. Stalin gifted it to Ukraine because Stalin himself was of Ukrainian origin. So if Russian Federation took its own part that was gifted to Ukraine after some hostile acts by Ukrainian government, sponsored by CIA, that's the genesis of that war. So that's a separate trajectory. And what you are seeing there is a white European tribal conflict. And of course, in Southwest Asia, you are seeing a battle of supremacy of whichever branch of an imperialist cult that has been called a religion. And that imperialist cult has various factions. So that genesis is slightly different. Hopefully, Israel, by its technological prowess, will be able to decapitate the Islamic theocratic government in Iran, perhaps with some help from United States. I don't think United States will send boots on the ground. I'm repeating it several times. United States is already there in Southwest Asia. United States military presence has been there. United States has multiple military bases. They have active duty personnel. They have Marines. They have all kinds of things all over West Asia. So it's not they will enter it. They are already there. And they keep on providing logistic supports, intelligence support, technological support to Israel. My guess is that that will be done at a higher level. It will benefit United States if there is a regime change in Iran, and it gives a sense of deniability to US regime or administration that we didn't do it. Go and ask Bibi Netanyahu.
So Bibi is the henchman.
Yes.
Bibi is the henchman.
And Bibi will be doing himself and his nation a favor by eliminating a theocratic government that has called for destruction of State of Israel. So if I were in shoes of Bibi Netanyahu, I will do what he is doing, possibly with more vigor and more force. Why would you play with fire when you know that it can burn you? That is what Iran did. There was
अच्छा
no need.
मित्रों, बहुत सीधा बता रहे सर। आग से सिर्फ उतना ही खिलो जितना झेल सको। ईरान ने कुछ ज्यादा ही आग फैला दी है। अब इसका खामियाजा ईरान को खुद को भुगतना पड़ेगा मित्रों। हमारे डिस्कशन की 50 मिनट होने जा रही है सर। बातें तो लंबी चलती रहेगी, मगर डिस्कस इसमें से एक ही निकलता है सर। भारत के लिए दिस इज द लास्ट थिंग, फ्यू मिनट्स वी हैव, आई वांट यू टू कमेंट ऑन दैट, कि भारत के लिए अभी के सिचुएशन में इज इट राइट टू बी इन द मिडिल पाथ,
Yes,
strategically independent?
yes, it will be strategically important for us to remain neutral, continue to give diplomatic homilies that this is not the era for war and peace must prevail. Uh, that's perfectly fine. That will help the government of India that yes, we are peacemakers. But let me put it in very blunt terms. Government of India has no leverage on government of Israel. Government of Israel will do what is best for the
People of
nation of Israel.
people of
They will talk to you politely, but they will do what is important for the nation of Israel. And again, Vladimir Putin talking to Bibi Netanyahu is not going to change Bibi Netanyahu's mind. You need to understand the psychology. That tiny nation is facing battle of existence, a war, for self-existence. If parties that are sworn to destroy their country, and they say, even if you give us the Gaza and the West Bank and create a Palestinian state, that will still not be enough because they want from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is a coded message for destruction of state of Israel. So when you are facing that, will you commit suicide? Will you commit suicide just like Mayas and Incas and Aztecs did in South America? By being too nice and too good to the foreign marauders? Israel is not going to do that. They got their freedom, their nation back after being in
2000 years.
exile from their motherland for more than 2000 years. They are not going to do that. Read the history, read what are the tea leaves are saying. India can play the path of a responsible statesperson and spreading the
ऑप्टिक्स
message of
समझिए दोस्तों, ऑप्टिक्स समझिए। कभी कभी फोन पे बातें होती है, जो बातें ही नहीं होती ना, उसका प्रेस रिलीज आता है। सीधी भाषा में अगर मैं आपको बताऊं तो, आम आदमी की भाषा में, जब दो नेताएं बात करते हैं ना, जो दो नेताएं जो बात करते हैं ना, वो बातें तो पता ही नहीं चलती किसी को। वो तो खाली राष्ट्रों के अपने उद्देश्य, स्टेटेड पॉलिसीज की प्रेस रिलीज निकलती है। ये हमें समझने की जरूरत है। जियोपॉलिटिक्स के अंदर मित्रों, आज की स्थिति, जैसे हमने कहा कि सर ने बताया कि 60 फीट अंदर बंकर में हसन नसरुल्लाह को दबा दिया। 200 किलो का वजन था उसका। He was 200 kg man, a huge man. What I mean to say is, and he never came out. He died from there was a sonic boom created that. The vibrations and then, well, what not? Now, war is very brutal. You need to understand that. And that's why there has to be some sane voices in the world which will say this is not the era of war. See, the optics are very, very good. But when you are telling this to a person whose own existence is in danger constantly. You need to understand which tone it is said, how it is said, and what does it mean. Dr. Sahib has very clearly said to us today, this seems to be, sir, the season of regime changes. चल ही रहा है, चल ही रहा है, चल ही रहा है. अच्छे के लिए, बुरे के लिए, जो भी कहो. We are looking at something like that. Sir, जाने से पहले, one small comment on, will this, there's a lot of talk. Last year, Israel invited Iranian Shah's son, if you remember. Are we talking of he returning back to Iran?
I don't think that will happen. From perspective of Iranian people, Shah was a tyrant. Shah was a usurper. Shah was a CIA plant. I think what Iranian people are yearning for is a true democracy, which they never saw. Their fervent hope was that after the 1979 revolution, they will have democracy. But the Islamic factions usurped that revolution for establishing a theocratic state, which is not a democracy. Iranians keep on sort of feigning that they have a democracy, this, that, but it's not democracy. Everything is a fixed match. You know who has been in power. First it was Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, who lost power only by his death. And this man, Ayatollah Khamenei, will also, because he is the supreme leader, he is going to be there till he dies. So the sooner he dies, facilitated by Israel, that will cause the regime change. So the Iranian people don't want an Islamist regime, but they also don't want pretender to the throne coming back. And I think son of Raza Pahlavi also is under no illusions that he is quote unquote going to come back. He knows that he does not stand any chance. I think Iranian people want a true democracy. Iran was a great civilization, and the Islamist regime has exploited the talents of Iranian people to have a military, strong state and survive the US sanctions, to use the talent and brilliance of the Iranian people, their brain power. So I'm trying to distinguish between the Shiite clergy that is running the show there and the common ordinary Iranian people, because there's a lot of resistance to these, the hijab and chador and this and that, and, fatwas against music and dancing, all that kind of thing.
Dr. Sahab, I'll tell you one thing. What you are saying now, my other guest, Dr. Ambassador Deepak Vora, said the same thing. Probably both of you are of the same age group. You have seen that. You are saying the same thing, what he said, And he was very categorical that people of Iran are very different from the clergy of Iranian government.
So I think what will happen in Iran will be good for Iranian people, Iranian nation, not necessarily for the Islamist regime. And I am basically hopeful that once that happens, the bigger war will stop, because who was fanning the bigger war? Who is supporting Houthis? Who was supporting Hezbollah? Who was sending money to Islamic Jihad and Hamas? That was the theocratic government of Iran.
सांप का सर कुचल दिया जाएगा. दर्शक मित्रों, यही बात बहुत क्लियर उभर के आ रही है. आज के लिए तो हमारे पास वक्त नहीं बचा है, मगर मैं आप सबसे कहूंगा, प्लीज like, share and subscribe this video. If you want to help anyway, you have the descriptions, you have the QR code also. Please do so. And at the same time, please do send us the comments. What do you feel about the subject? What do you feel about our talk? Whether there are improvements needed, yes, that also we would like to hear from you, so that we can improve. हम लोग अच्छा बना सकते हो. आप कमेंट कीजिए और शेयर कीजिए, लाइक भी कीजिए. सर, आज के लिए तो समय नहीं बचा है. वन लास्ट कमेंट फ्रॉम यू एंड देन विल रैप इट अप. विल से गुड बाय.
I think my last comment is contemporaneous with the current beginning of the festival. Instead of chanting Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, our audience should be chanting Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samsita Namastasai 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 Namo Namah.
शक्ति की आराधना है, शक्ति की आराधना का पर्व है. अहिंसा परमो धर्म. वक्त चला गया, शक्ति की आराधना करने की जरूरत है. यही बोध है डॉक्टर आदित्यन जी का. फिर से मिलेंगे हम अगले हफ्ते उनसे, जब बात करेंगे फर्दर सिचुएशन में क्या बदलाव आता है उसकी. तब तक के लिए हमें इजाजत दीजिए. धन्यवाद. वंदे मातरम. जय हिंद.